Hey guys, this is Locke. In this video, I'm going to do a complete beginner's guide for new players and go over all the information that you need to really get started and delve into this game. So I'm actually going to start the video off by talking about rerolling. If you're rerolling, it depends on how patient you are, first of all, because I think there are three levels of rerolls that I can talk about. The first level of reroll is to definitely go for this hero, the Legendary Plus Cosette. She is future-proof, like even in Korea, which is 1 year ahead of us, she's still being used, and she is the highest single target damage dealer. If you can get her, this is the ultimate level of reroll that you can go for. But the thing is, there often isn't a banner that has her on rate up. So if you're trying to reroll for her, it could take a while. And when I say a while, I mean like it could take like 4 or 5 days of rerolling with like multiple rerolls at a time. So for me personally, I would not have the patience to do that unless you get like extremely lucky or something. But I don't have the patience to do that, so I don't know how many people would actually go to that level of rerolling. But if you are the kind of person that wants the absolute best start possible, this is who you should be going for. The next level of reroll actually depends on the banners that are available. So if you go look at it right now, you click on summon, there are there are three banners that you can reroll for. The first one is called a special banner, and the target hero that you want to get from this is going to be a legendary plus hero. Legendary plus heroes are generally rarer and also more powerful than the legendary tier of heroes. So right now that is Rudy plus, and so this is the second level of reroll, where you're basically spending all the rubies and tickets that you have to try to get the legendary hero plus that's on banner. This is still a pretty difficult reroll because the chance of this is still quite low to try to get it. It's not as low as, Cosette, but it's still quite low. So you might still spend like a couple of days trying to get this hero. So it depends, again, how patient you are. If you're going for Cosette anyway, you might just, try to summon on, you know, like you can summon on this banner. It doesn't really matter. Like if you're trying to get Cosette, it's a very hard reroll, so you can try, but if you are interested in going for this, I mean, I wish you luck, but it is a difficult process to try to get this guy. Legendary plus heroes are generally it's a very low chance to get it, but you can attempt for it, right? And the third level of reroll is the rate up heroes. Now these heroes actually are not too bad to get. There is generally two heroes that are focused on this banner. Right now we can see here's Miss Velvet, and the other one is this one whose name I can't pronounce. So you can try to get one of these heroes, and this reroll isn't too bad. The rate of getting these heroes are a lot easier than others. So this is the reroll that I would recommend for most people. And which hero you should focus on really depends on the banners that are available at the time. If you're looking at it like right now, the best hero to go for would be Miss Velvet. She's actually one of the most powerful legendary heroes in the game right now. So this is definitely a reroll that I would encourage people to do. And something else that I should mention, I mean, there is a pity here. It says, when you fill up the bar from 0 to 140, for these rate up heroes, you have a 75% chance of getting this rate up hero. So you can get, Miss Velvet when you fill up that bar to 140. You have a 75% chance of getting her. Whereas for the special hero, you only have about a 4 to 5% chance of getting this hero. So as I said, like getting these legendary plus heroes is quite difficult. You have to be very, very lucky to get them. So that's why rerolling for this legendary plus hero is not for everyone, because you need a lot of patience to get it. There are some heroes that the game gives you for free, especially legendary heroes, and these are actually quite good. So the two heroes that most people will be able to get quite easily, the first one is Karen, and you can get her on your 7th day of login. I use her everywhere. I think she's a very good unit for especially beginners to focus on, because not only does her ultimate revive heroes, so you have a little bit of room for making errors, but she has 2 AoE heals that heals the entire party, and her third skill decreases the attack of the boss. So in boss fights, the skill becomes extremely useful because it lets your whole party survive a lot better. So I use her everywhere. I think she's one of the most universal heroes that you can use no matter where you are. Um, So I highly recommend, kind of focusing on her, and it's very good that the game gives her to us for free. The second hero that we get for free is Rachel. And this hero we get when we get a total combined power of 300,000. I'll talk more into that later, but this is also a hero that I recommend people look into. She's a DPS hero, and when I started the game, I didn't have any other better DPS heroes, so I used her mainly as my DPS slot. But now that I have better heroes, I still use her because of the debuffs that she provides. She decreases block rate of enemies. She decreases the defense of enemies with the skill, and the skill she increases the damage received. So if you have a better damage dealer, like for example Cosette Plus, Rachel will increase the damage that that hero does. And certain dungeons, certain raids, and certain bosses, you want to do as much damage as possible, so you really want to be still using Rachel. So it's not a bad idea to focus on her. If you don't have any better DPS heroes, use her. But even if you have better DPS heroes, it's really not a bad idea to focus on her on the side anyway, simply because her debuffs are just so good. Now, that's it for the legendary heroes, but in this game, just using legendary heroes isn't enough to get you far. You actually have to focus on a wide roster of heroes. And the reason for that is because a lot of bosses do debuffs that it's hard for you to win without resisting these debuffs, so you need to bring up these units that have a high chance to resist these effects. So there are 5 heroes that you need to focus on for these resistant types heroes. The first one is this guy. I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I just call him Gui, but he gives you burn resist. I'm not going to go into exactly what chapters you need to use these heroes. I'm just going to go over them and say, hey, if you have some spare resources and you've brought up your main team, put your excess resources into these heroes because you will need them sooner or later. So this is the first one, Gui. The second one is Adele, which is wherever he is. Okay, I'll just go in a different order. So the second one is Henry. He gives you paralyzed resist. So there's actually 2 different Henrys. There's that one and then the blue one. This one you will need for chapter 10, and he gives you shock resist. The green one is more important to focus on than the blue one because you need the green one sooner than you would need the blue one. So that's 3, and then you need Adele and Ian. So let me see if I can find them. So this is Ian. He gives you poison resist. And then there is Adele. Now I just need to find Adele. There he is. Adele, that gives you freeze resist. So these are 5 heroes that you need to focus on to give you resistance effects to take on several bosses, because they just do like burn damage, which will eat through your defense and just go and kill your entire team. So if you don't have burn resist when you're fighting a boss that does burn, you're going to have a very hard time. In addition to this, there are some bosses that use a suppression kind of skill. I will show you an example using this. So for example, this boss does a skill, this skill, Giant Claw Press, which does insane amount of damage, like it does 10,000% of attack. So this will probably one-shot your entire party. The way to overcome this is to use a suppression character, and there are specific characters that you can use for suppression. However, since this is a beginner guide, there's something else that I think is more, which will give you more bang for your buck than actually focusing on these suppressing characters for story. This is what I'm going to show you is only applicable for story. When you get to raid, you need to actually bring these suppression characters because you won't be able to get away with it. I personally think that story is more important, so that's why I'm going to go showing you that way right now. So what you do is you can go to this button here, the second button from your right, which shows you like a pet icon. You can click that and you can borrow one of your friend's pets. So make sure your friends, some guys that have this guy as his pet, Wilder, because what he does is he gives a skill that gives you immunity for 2 seconds to your entire party. So when the boss is using a suppression skill, you basically use a pet skill, and there's a button right here on the right just below my 4-character portrait. If you click on that one, as he's using a suppression skill, your entire party is immune to damage, so they don't get one shot. And in story, all these bosses use their suppression skill only once. So instead of bringing a character simply for suppression, you can just bring this pet. If you happen to pull the pet yourself, it's great. But if you don't pull the pet yourself, just find some friends that have that as their pet, the Wilder as their pet, and bring that pet for to take on these bosses. The first time you'll encounter this is in chapter 3, where you will need to bring like a Len or a Len Plus for suppression, but instead of bringing that, you can just bring a Wilder pet and give yourself immunity so that you don't need to bring that suppression character. So in addition to resistance heroes and suppression heroes, there are other heroes that you should be investing as well, right? The blue hero of choice that I would highly focus everybody to consider getting, maybe even with your selection ticket, is Shay. I think Shay is just all around good because she provides a bunch of things. So the first thing she provides is that her ultimate charges really fast because of her passive. She gets increased gauge every time she does attacks. So her ultimate gauge fills up very fast, and when she uses her ultimate, all your other units usually are also able to use their ultimate right away. So basically, this adds a ton of DPS because all units are able to use their ultimate a lot faster. In addition to that, she provides healing, which is great, of course. But she also provides a buff to your party, which decreases the damage received. And so with the healing and this buff, which lasts for 15 seconds, I feel that it makes the entire party a lot more resistant to damage. So I really like this unit. It was rated like the top tier in several tier lists that I've seen. I highly recommend investing in her all around because I think she's just a fantastic unit. The blind isn't really that useful for bosses because they're immune to hard CCs. So, the blind skill isn't really that good. But the other two skills, this one gives you a healing for group and a nice buff, and this skill heals a particular target. All around, she's a fantastic unit, and I've used her in a lot of places, in stories and raids and dungeons all over the place. So I really recommend going for her. Now, as I mentioned, you need specific heroes for different bosses and things like that. But for generic use, like when you're doing story and you're going through when you're going through mobs, you probably want to bring a generic party. And the typical setup that you would use for a generic party is something like this, where you have Karen and Shay, and then your tank of choice and your DPS of choice. For me, I used Rudy as my tank because that's the one I happened to pull at the time, and I used Rachel as my DPS because I didn't have any better DPS units when I started. I didn't have Dullins or Miss Velvet or anything, so Rachel was the one I used, and this was the party that I used for most of the content. I mentioned, Shay is very good. I also mentioned Karen's very good. You could replace Rachel with like Dylan's or Miss Velvet or Cosette Plus. I think those three are better in terms of damage output. And for the tank, you can replace them with other tanks as well. It doesn't even have to be a legendary tank. It could be a blue tank like Cade Plus, or if you have like nobody better, you can even use Adele. You might be able to get away with using Adele for some of the lower levels until you get a better tank. That's all I have to say about the heroes. The next section I'm going to get into is about the shop. So when you start, you want to look at the mole shop, and every 6 hours you want to buy these maps. These maps are an invaluable resource, and you will need a lot of them because when you get to a certain stage in the game, you can't progress in story anymore. The only thing you can do is exploration, and you need maps to do exploration. So you'll want to keep using these maps, and you want to get as many maps as possible. So every 6 hours, don't lose sleep over it, but every 6 hours that you can, buy 100 maps. And whenever you see a legendary weapon being sold here for gold, not for rubies, but for gold, buy it. It doesn't matter what set it is, but you want to get that weapon, and you want to try to plus 10 it as soon as possible and give it to your DPS that you're using, because that is probably going to be the most help for a beginner account than any other tip. Because that plus 10 blue weapon is going to give you something like, I think, 1,000 something attack, and like generic blue weapons give you a fraction of that. If I can find, A generic weapon gives you 235. A plus 10 weapon, I think it gives you around 1,000 attack. So you can see the difference is like 5 times, right? So you really want to try to get that legendary weapon as soon as possible. If you ever see it in the store and you don't have one already, get it. It doesn't matter what set it is. The attack stat on that weapon is going to be way higher than whatever set effect that you can think of. So that's what you really want to do. You really want to get the that weapon as soon as possible, and you want to try to enhance it to plus 10 as soon as possible as well. You can even go to plus like 15. That's what I did. I started with the HP set, which is considered one of the worst sets in the game, but that's what I found. And I plus 15'd it and used it for a long time, and it really helped me to progress like very fast. So to buy the legendary weapon, you really want to have 2 million gold all the time, because you might see it one day, and if you don't have gold to buy it, you're out of luck. So you want to keep at least 2 million gold all the time to have a chance at buying it whenever it shows up. Other than that, I want to show some other tips for the shop, because there are a lot of different things you can buy from the shop. So I'm going to start with the Topaz shop, because I think this is one of the most important tips that I can give you. From this shop, the only thing that you should be buying is this item here, the 10 times selected rate up hero summon ticket. The reason you want to only buy this one is because this ticket is used in a special banner. Like before I showed you the special banner and the rate up banner, this ticket that you're buying actually goes into this particular banner. And whenever you fill this banner up to 140, the unit that you're going to get, that you can select whoever you want to get, is guaranteed. And you can also change the unit to be whoever you want. You can change it midway. And this banner also updates as soon as new heroes are released. So you can see this is a fantastic banner. And there will never be a time where you just can't get any heroes. You will always be able to get it. You just have to be able to fill this up. And for free-to-play players, this is going to take longer than for people that spend a lot of money on this. But the point is that everybody can fill this. You just have to make sure that you don't waste the resource, because it is very limited. They give you to fill this up, because this is one of the best things that, in my opinion, is in this game, because they're basically letting you pick whatever unit you want, and you'll be able to get it. There are some other things that I wanted to mention about this the shop as well. Legendary Soulstones, I think, is very important. You want to make sure, hopefully you can get like an average of 40 Soulstones a day. That lets you buy 2 shards of the hero of your choice. I would probably start focusing on my DPS. I think DPS is more important than the other ones. But once your DPS is at a comfortable level, like for example, if you start at 30 and they're at 36, maybe it's okay to bring your tank and your healer up to 36 as well. I'll let you decide on that. But you want to at least buy like 2 shards of the unit that, of a unit that you're using daily. If you can't afford 2 because you're only doing Soulstone dungeons at a low level and you're only buying 1, that's okay. I mean, that is what it is. But you want to try to get it to 2 shards as soon as possible, because that will really help you progress in this game. Something else that I want to mention is the guild. Like, you want to try to get into an active guild as soon as possible. You get guild coins based on the activity of everybody in the guild. So I will show you. When I go to guild achievements, like everybody as a guild needs to work together to complete all these achievements on a daily basis. And as you do that, you get guild coins, and you can also fill up this progress bar at the top as well and claim an extra 50 coins. The reason you want to focus on the guild, especially as early as you can, is because it provides some really nice things from there. It gives you these 3 buffs, which gives you 5% attack, defense, and HP. It also gives you a daily hero ticket and a daily pet ticket that you can redeem as well. And finally, it gives you special enhancement stones, which are very rare. You can buy these weekly, and if you have leftover guild stones, you can also buy the legendary stone as well. I typically don't. I usually don't have enough to do that, but the other things that I talked about are very valuable, and it'll really help you out to get into an active guild as soon as possible and to start taking advantage of this. The last thing that I want to mention about the shop is the friendship points. The first thing that you want to focus on here is the light crystal, because this lets you get radiant weapons and armors later on. It is a slow process, so you want to try to start buying these as soon as possible. You need 1,000 coins to get this. After you get that, the second thing that you want to get is the Soulstone ticket. After that is the elixir ticket, and finally after that is the rune temple ticket. That's the order that I would go into, and that's what I recommend as well. I'm not going to go into the reasons why. I mean, this is a beginner guide, so I hope you just take my word for it. Anyway, so that's all I want to talk about the shop. The next thing I want to get into is the gear. Now, as a newer player, you might find that you're dying on a particular boss, and you might say, hey, I need to get better defenses or something because I'm dying. Sometimes I find that it's not really the defenses that you're dying, but the debuff, right? Like, for example, burn. Even if there's like a 5% chance to burn you, if that burn goes through and you get burned, you die. Like, the burn is just a horrific effect in this game. So the way to prevent that is to try to skill up your the resistance heroes as much as possible. And so I feel that for a new player, the most important thing that you really want to do, so here, this is the resistance hero, and the higher levels of the skill that you have, the more resistance he has. So for example, he might be at level 11, and he has a 50% chance to resist burn, and the boss has a 55% chance to burn you or something. So you really want at least level 12, right? So to go from level 11 to 12, you need to get plus skill gear. So I think the most important gear that people should focus on, or at least have a copy of, even if it is green gear, is the skill up gears. Now I don't think I have copies of the blue ones, so I will show you how it looks like for a red gear. Like, this is the symbol you want to focus on. It says Orth of the Transcender. If you have a 5-piece gear, this gives you plus 3 skills to all of your skills, including your passive. And I feel like this is really important for new players because your skill level might not be high enough that you can resist the effects that you need to. So to make up for that, you really want to get that plus 3 skill on your resistance heroes. And you don't need to get like multiple sets. You can get like one set of this and just equip it on whichever hero you're using. But it is invaluable. Like, you really want to get this. You really want to keep a plus, like a full 5-piece set of this at all times, because you really need it to pass some content. If you're still for some reason lacking resistance, I'm just going to give you one additional tip. You can try using the tactics formation. You have to figure out exactly who you're gonna put where, because it's very specific about who gets resistances, but it gives you quite a bit of resistance. So if you find that you're still dying to like burn damage, if you're still getting frozen, even if you're using ice resistance, this might be one way to try to bypass that. Now back into gears. I'm going to give you a general rule of thumb for what kind of gears you want to put on the type of heroes. For most DPS heroes, you want to bring a crit set. The only DPS hero that you want to bring a different set for is Dylan's, who you want to bring an attack set. For most tanks, you can either do 3 defense, 2 block, or 2 block and 3 defense. For Shay, I prefer the skill up set on her because it helps her. Where is Shay? It helps her with her. Sorry, I was just looking for her so I can talk about it as I was. Okay. I prefer the skill up on Shay because it helps her to take more advantage of her passive and bring her ultimate up faster, which lets everyone bring the ultimate up faster. But for all the other support characters, I prefer the cooldown resist set. That looks like this. Because the faster you can cool down your skills, the more heals you get, and usually you want to get heals as often as possible. It's more effective to get heals more often as possible than to increase the amount of heal. For gears, for blue gears, you really want to use blue enhancement stones. Don't use any red enhancement stones on blue gears. It's okay to take them up to plus 10, but I wouldn't go higher than plus 10 for blue gears. And that's all I have to really say about gears. Again, I'm not going to too much detail. I'm trying to give as much like generic information for beginners as possible. So I'm not going into too much detail. I'm just hoping I can give enough for people to get started and to get a firm hand into this game, and then they can go look up more advanced guides on specific things. The next thing I want to talk about is dungeons, and I want to really focus on one particular dungeon, the Soulstone Quarry, which I think is the most important dungeon that people should focus on as soon as possible. You want to really try to get to Soulstone number 6 as soon as possible, because this is going to give you 20 legendary Soulstone shards every attempt. Remember I said that you want to get 2 of these, 2 shards of the legendary units a day. So if you're able to do this Soulstone Quarry 6 2 times a day, and you can, like, every day you get a refresh, that's 1, and you can actually buy an additional attempt for 110 rubies, which is 100% worth it. That gives you 40 Soulstones a day, which is enough to get 2 shards a day. What I really like about this game is that as soon as you have a legendary unit, you can max that unit in 55 days just using the Soulstone Quarry and 110 rubies a day. For other games that I've played, that maxing a unit usually takes so much longer than 55 days. A different game that I covered takes about 300 days to max a unit without spending additional resources. So this game lets you do that in 55 days is, I think, really fantastic. And I really like that system, that as soon as you pull that hero, I know within 55 days, if I really focus on that one hero, I can max it. For Legendary Plus heroes, you can only buy 1 shard a day. So to max it, it'll instead take you 110 days instead of 55 days. And this is assuming you don't pull a dupe of it. If you pull a dupe, the amount of time that it takes to max it goes down by 5 or 10 days, depending on if it's a Legendary or Legendary Plus. But assuming no dupes, you can still max this unit out in 55 days or 110 days. What you need to do is focus on the Soulstone Quarry. The team that you typically want to use for this is actually Rachel, because Rachel will decrease the debuff, will decrease the defenses and increase damage received for the boss. And then with Rachel, you want to bring 3 other ranged heroes. And there are a lot of tactics on, tactics and advice from different videos, and I've made one myself as well that you can refer to if you want. So I'm not going to go into the details of how you do it, but that's kind of generically what you want to focus on to get the Soulstone Quarry level up as soon as possible. That's the most important thing for dungeons, so that's the one that I want to mention. Next, I'm going to go into the CP, because I feel like there'll be times in the game where you want to really get to the next tier of reward, because it's going to help you out a lot. Like, you want to get this ring or something, or you want to get to 300,000 CP to get Rachel. So this is also something that new players should focus on, so that first of all, they can unlock Rachel and just get the rewards that they need for the next tier, which might drastically help them improve in the game. So things you can do to increase your CP is every hero that you have, you should equip them with gear. Like even if it's like white gear or green gear, blue gear, whatever you have, just equip everybody. It increases CP for gear equipped. Now you want to try to put sets of 2 and 3, like 2 block and 3 defense, or 2 HP and 3 skill up, or whatever you have. You want to try to put it in terms of 2 and 3, or in terms of 5, like equip a full 5 HP set or something. That gives you the highest number of CP for these heroes. In addition to that, you also want to start leveling up your unused heroes. You want to start leveling up in terms of 10. So you want to get everybody to level 10, and then you want to get everybody to level 20. And again, don't do this as a main thing, right? Like focus on the main heroes that you need. But if you have excess resources and you want to use them somehow, then you start leveling up the rest of your heroes, again in terms of 10. So plus 10, plus 10, plus 10 to everybody, and then level 20, level 20, 20 to everyone, and so on and so on. That's also going to help you to increase everybody's CP as well, which adds to your total CP. Alongside leveling comes skill up. Every 5 levels you can give them +1 skill. Just be careful that you don't drain all your gold by giving everybody skills. So you want to first of all, you want to keep 2 million gold that I mentioned before, but after that you can casually increase skill levels as you go along as well. This will also add, like, every skill level gives you 50 additional CP, which adds to your CP count. So it's an easy way to bring up your CP. One quick tip that I want to give about runes, which is like the divinity, don't try to get one particular stat up. Try to spread it around to all stats, because that's what I did. I first tried to bring up my attack stat up as soon as possible, and I failed very often. Like going from level 9 to 10 is only a 10% chance. So more often than not, I'm wasting 4,000 of these blue runes here, right? Whereas instead, if I just kind of spread it out, which is what I started doing after getting my attack to 10, I started spreading it out. I have a better chance of, bringing up more stats overall. So that's what I would recommend you do. I would not recommend focusing on one stat. I would recommend spreading it out over all your stats. For potential, I'm going to tell you what I did. There are other guides that talk about different things, but this is what I personally advise. What I started with was for my tanks and my healers, specifically Karen, because Karen can revive others, I need to make sure that they're not one-shot by whatever boss I'm fighting. So whatever boss I'm fighting, if he is able to one-shot Karen, because Karen is not strong enough to survive one shot, then I would focus on her HP and defense. I would bring these up enough that she's not able to be one shot. I would do the same with the tank as well. And once that is set, then I move to my DPS and invest everything into my DPS. Like I would invest into the attack and get it as high as possible. Obviously, you can see like all of these are kind of raised up now, but that's what I did when I started. Like I made sure that my healer and tank cannot be one shot, and then everything else went into my DPS to increase their attack as much as possible, because a lot of these bosses also have damage checks. If you don't kill the boss within a certain amount of time, they go berserk and they're able to kill you very quickly. So you also want to be able to DPS them as within a certain time frame as well. So that's the reason why I invested potential that way. The last thing that I want to mention in this video is to keep a lookout on your events. There are events in the game, and if you don't pay attention to them, you could miss out on some rewards that are very, very nice for free-to-play players, or especially for new players. The event right now is this one. Nope, not this one. This one. When you're using maps, it gives you different rewards, and the final reward that it gives you is actually a legendary weapon. So if you are unlucky as a new player that you don't find a legendary weapon in the mole shop, you can actually get a legendary weapon guaranteed from this event. And it doesn't matter what the set is. It's nice if it's an attack set or a crit set or something that you can use for a very long time. But even if you don't get that, even if you get like an HP set, it's still like miles ahead of any blue set effect that you can use. So you really want to make sure to keep an eye on events and see if you can fill these up. You're going to get maps every day. Like you will get 400 maps every day if you're checking the mall shop every 6 hours. And this event lasts quite a while. I think it lasts for 2 weeks. So that's more than enough time to be able to use your maps. You can use your maps by going into field exploration and then choose the field. Generally want to use these fields because there's two different types of maps, the yellow map and the green map. So use one of the yellow maps, get ready, click explore, and you will start, like AFK farming. So that's what the maps are for. So those are all my tips for a beginner guide. If there are other tips that you guys can think of, please leave it in the comments below, so that other newer players can read it and benefit from it as well. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Take care now.